Hayes stood at the observation window of the and looked out at the massive space station below. Station was not beautiful. It was built for function, not appearance. Metal plates covered the hull, and docking ports stuck out like the limbs of some mechanical creature frozen in time. But too, it represented something important, a place where the galaxy still tried to talk instead of fight. They had come to this station with a job that seemed easy when they left Earth. The human government wanted peaceful relations with a newly discovered species called the Veiled Collective. These aliens had appeared 3 cycles ago, their ships appearing from deep space without warning. They sent messages, but always through their machines. No Veiled had shown their face to any other species. No one knew what they looked like under those strange metallic shells that covered their bodies in photographs. Was a good captain. He had spent 20 years working with different alien species across the galaxy. He knew how to read danger. He knew how to calm angry military commanders when trade deals went wrong. He knew how to make peace where others only saw conflict. But this assignment made him nervous. The Veiled were different. Everyone could feel it. The alarm chimed on his communication device. Grace, his communications officer, was calling him to the diplomatic chamber. Her voice sounded strange through the speaker, tight with confusion. Did not ask questions. He moved quickly through the corridors of his ship, passing crew members who were going about their normal work. Some nodded at him. Others stepped aside to let him pass. There was a well-run vessel, and the crew respected their captain. When entered the diplomatic chamber, he stopped walking. Grace stood against the wall, her hands shaking slightly. In the center of the large round table sat a creature that had never seen before. It was tall, perhaps 7 feet, and its skin looked like polished black glass. It had 4 arms instead of 2. Its head was smooth and rounded, and where the eyes should be, there were only smooth surfaces. But the thing that struck most was how still it sat. The creature did not move at all, not even to breathe. Then it spoke. The voice came through the translation machine, which turned the creature's complex clicking sounds into human words. "I am N," the creature said, "third heir to the throne of the Veiled Collective. I have come to thee in secret. No one in my government knows I am here. If they find out, I will be hunted." Looked at Grace. She shook her head slightly, telling him that she had not brought this creature aboard. The security systems had not triggered any alarms. Somehow, N had gotten onto his ship without being detected. "Welcome," said, because diplomacy meant speaking first and asking questions later. "I am Captain Hayes. This is my ship. You are safe here, at least for now." N did not move or change her tone, but something in the way she held herself seemed to relax. "I know who you are, Captain. I know everything about you. I have studied human history for many years. I have watched how your species acts. You are different from the other advanced races. That is why I came to find you." Pulled out a chair and sat down across from the alien princess. "Tell me why you ran," he said. "Tell me what you are running from, and I will do what I can to help." N explained her situation in simple words, as if she was speaking to a child. Her people were a powerful species, but they were also trapped. The Veiled Collective was ruled by the older families, the ones who had always held power. These families made all the decisions. The lower castes had no voice. They worked and fought, but they had no say in their own lives. This system had existed for 10,000 years, and everyone accepted it as the way things had to be. But 3 seasons ago, a new power had come to the Veiled space. The Dominion offered weapons and technology. They offered power. The military leaders of the Veiled had begun listening to advisors, and now they had proposed something simple. They wanted N to bond with a military commander. This bond would join the 2 species together. It would make the Veiled and the allies, and they would become too strong for anyone to challenge. On the surface, this seemed like a good plan, but N had studied the 2. She had seen what they did to other species that formed bonds with them. First came the promises of strength. Then came the promises of prosperity, but slowly they took control. They became the dominant power. The weaker species found themselves serving the, not working alongside them. Within a generation, they lost their independence completely. N did not want this future for her people. So she had stolen a small transport ship. She had disabled the tracking systems, and she had come to find the human captain that all the other species underestimated. "Why me?" asked. "Why come to me? Why not go to the Terran Council or seek protection from other species?" "Because humans are the only species who have survived being the weakest and still remained free," N said. "Your people came to the stars late. Your technology was primitive. Other species could have destroyed you easily, but you made friends instead of enemies. You learned from others, but you did not let others control you. You chose your own path." Stood up and walked to the window. He could see the station below. He could see the space around it, the empty void of the cosmos. Harboring this creature would be dangerous. Her government would demand her return. If he refused, it could mean war. The human government would blame him. They might strip him of his command. They might even put him in prison for treason. But knew something that most people did not understand. Sometimes, the right choice was also the dangerous choice. Sometimes, helping someone meant standing against the entire galaxy if necessary. "You can stay," said, turning back to N. "But we need a plan. We need to hide you where the veiled scanners cannot find you, and we need to figure out what happens next." Grace moved forward. She was smart and brave and knew she would understand the weight of what he was deciding. "I can create false records," she said. "The veiled sensors are advanced, but they search for what they expect to find. If we hide her in the lower levels of the ship where our old systems are, the scanners might not register her as a life form. They will think it is machine noise." N stood up for the first time. She was taller than had realized, but her voice was grateful, and that was something the captain had not expected to hear from an alien princess. "Thank you, Captain," she said. "I chose correctly. You will help save my people." Nodded, but he did not smile. He knew that everything was about to become very complicated. The easy job of diplomatic relations had just turned into something much more dangerous. But as he looked at N, he felt sure about his decision. Some things were worth the risk. 3 weeks had passed since N came to The ship was traveling through the Verdant Nebula, a region of space filled with clouds of colored gas and bright stars. To anyone watching, the looked like it was on a normal mission, collecting data and preparing reports. No one would have guessed that the most wanted creature in the galaxy was hiding in the lowest levels of the ship. Visited N every day. He brought her human food, which she could eat without any problems. She brought data files, which she shared with him in a small room that Grace had prepared for their meetings. The room was hidden away in a section of the ship that was not connected to the main monitoring systems. It was the safest place on the. During these meetings, N told about her world and her people. She explained that the Veiled were not born the way humans thought. When a Veiled reached adulthood, they developed a hard outer shell that covered their entire body. This shell protected them and gave them strength, but the shell also changed how they thought and acted. The older Veiled, the ones who had worn their shells the longest, became hard and cold inside as well as outside. N told that her people had a history of violence and war. They fought with each other constantly. The ruling families fought to keep their power. The lower castes fought to survive. This endless fighting had created a culture where strength and cruelty were valued above everything else. Mercy was seen as weakness. Kindness was seen as dangerous. Teaching someone to think about feelings was considered a threat to the social order. "Your people lived the same way once," N told. "I have studied your history. You fought wars that killed millions of your own people. You enslaved others based on the color of their skin. You poisoned your own world. But then something changed." Listened as N described how human history had changed over time. He realized that she understood human civilization better than many humans did. She saw the pattern clearly. Humans had made terrible choices, suffered, learned from their mistakes, and eventually chosen a better path. It was not perfect. Humans still fought, still made errors, but they kept trying to do better. "They are different," N said. "They have advanced technology and great military power, but they have not advanced morally. They do not believe in change. They only believe in domination. If my people bond with them, we will become like them. We will have power, but we will lose our ability to grow. We will be trapped forever. Asked her to explain more about the plan. N brought up detailed files she had stolen before she left her world. The files showed communications between commanders and veiled leaders, the promised weapons and technology, but buried in the technical documents were hidden plans. They intended to place military advisors in all levels of veiled government. Within 5 years, every important decision would be made by, not veiled. Within 10 years, the veiled would have no independence at all. They are patient hunters, N said. They do not kill quickly. They circle their prey for months or years. Then when the moment comes, they strike with complete force. Understood now why she had run. The arranged bonding was not about love or alliance. It was a trap, and her government did not even know they were walking into it. If had not been willing to listen, N would have bonded with the commander. They would have gained control over the veiled, and no one in the galaxy would have stopped them. "What do you want me to do?" asked. "I can hide you, but I cannot hide you forever. Eventually, a veiled warship will come looking for you. When that happens, I will have to decide whether to fight or surrender you." N moved closer to. Her movement was smooth and precise. There was nothing clumsy or uncertain about the way she used her 4 arms and her tall body. "I want you to help me expose the truth," she said. "The veiled people do not know about the trap, but they will believe the truth if it comes from the right source. If I reveal the conspiracy myself, they will call me a traitor and a liar. My family will deny everything. But if another species shows the evidence, if they prove the truth to the entire galaxy, then my people will have to listen." Felt a chill go through his body. She was asking him to do something that would anger many powerful species. They would see it as an attack. The veiled government would see it as interference. Even some human governments might see it as an act of war. "I will help you," said, "but we need more evidence. We need documents that no one can deny. We need proof that they have done this to other species before." Over the next 2 weeks, N helped gather information. She had brought extensive files with her when she escaped. These files showed that they had used the same strategy many times. They had absorbed 17 different species into their dominion over the last 100 years. Each time, it started with an alliance. Each time, it ended with complete control. But there was more. N showed something even more important. She showed him documents that proved they were planning military expansion. They did not want to control just the Verdant Nebula. They wanted to control half the galaxy. The Veiled were just the next step in their plan. After the Veiled, they would come for humans. Realized that this was not just about saving N or even her people. This was about the survival of every independent species in the galaxy. They had to be stopped before they became too powerful. "When?" N asked. "When will you show the galaxy what you have found?" Looked at his communications officer's logs. He thought about the crew members who trusted him to make the right decisions. He thought about the humans back on Earth who believed their species could be something more than soldiers in someone else's war. "Soon," said, "but we need to be ready for what comes after. Once we reveal the truth, nothing will be the same. War might come. They will not accept this challenge quietly." N made a sound that the translation machine converted into words, but understood it was actually laughter. "War is coming anyway, Captain. It is coming for my people, for your people, for everyone who values freedom. At least this way, we will choose the moment. At least this way, we will not be caught sleeping." Nodded. She was right. The time for hiding was ending. The time for action was beginning. The communication array on the was the strongest in the human fleet. It could send signals across light years of space. It could broadcast to millions of ships at once. Grace had built her career on understanding these systems. Now she would use that knowledge to either save the galaxy or condemn her captain to execution for treason. "Are you certain?" asked her. They stood in the communications room, which was sealed off from the rest of the ship. Only they and a handful of trusted crew members knew what was about to happen. Grace checked the systems one more time. She had been working for 18 hours without sleep. There were dark circles under her eyes, but her hands were steady as she moved across the control panels. The broadcast will reach every major communication hub in the Verdant Nebula. In 30 seconds, it will spread to the rest of the galaxy. Once it starts, we cannot stop it. The information will exist everywhere at once. Took a deep breath. This was the moment. After this, his life would change forever. The human government might call him a traitor. The veiled government would certainly call him an enemy. They would call him a target. But N was ready. She stood in the center of the communications room and could see that her alien body was perfectly calm. She did not shake. She did not show fear. The princess had decided that her time for hiding was over. "Begin the broadcast," commanded. Grace's fingers moved across the controls. Lights blinked on the vast panels that covered the walls. The power output of the changed as it channeled all its energy into the transmission system. For a moment, the ship's lights dimmed. Then the broadcast began. N's voice filled the communication channels across the entire sector. The translation system was sophisticated, and it converted her alien speech into languages that every species could understand. She spoke clearly and without emotion, the way she had been trained to speak as a royal member of the Veiled Collective. But the words she used were revolutionary. "My name is N," she said. "I am the third heir to the throne of the Veiled Collective. I am broadcasting this message because my people are being deceived. The Dominion has come to us with promises of strength and alliance, but these promises are lies." The message continued for 10 minutes. N laid out all the evidence. She showed the stolen documents. She showed the files that proved they had absorbed 17 other species. She showed the military plans that would allow them to control the entire galaxy within 50 years. She explained that the bond they wanted to create with her was the first step in enslaving the Veiled Collective. "I left my world and came to the human vessel because humans are the only species brave enough to stand against this," N said. "Humans are young. They have primitive technology, but they understand something that older species have forgotten, that freedom is more valuable than power, that justice is more important than safety. Captain Hayes of the human species has shown me that beings from different worlds can work together without one controlling the other." The broadcast ended and silence filled the communication room. For 5 seconds, nothing happened. Then alarms began sounding across the entire station network. The Dominion was broadcasting angry responses. The Veiled Government was demanding explanations. Every species in the galaxy was suddenly talking at once. The response was faster than expected. Within minutes, diplomatic messages began arriving on his communication system. Some were threats, some were requests for proof, some were expressions of support from species that had been oppressed by in the past. A veiled warship appeared near the station 2 hours after the broadcast. Its weapons were charged. Its communication systems demanded that the surrender both and in immediately. But behind the veiled warship, other ships began to appear. A Terran defense cruiser came in response to his distress signal. A merchant vessel arrived, its commander stating that they would not allow a peaceful ship to be attacked. Then a battleship arrived. The captain stated that her species had suffered under control, and they would fight to prevent it happening to others. Did not move from his position on the bridge. He looked at the view screen that showed the gathering forces around the station. This was the moment when everything could break apart into violent conflict. This was also the moment when things could change forever. The veiled warship commander opened a direct channel too. His voice came through the speakers, translated by the system, but the anger was clear in every word. "You have betrayed us. You have hidden our princess from us. You have broadcast lies about the alliance. Return the princess immediately, or we will destroy your vessel." Did not hesitate. "I will not." N came to my ship seeking protection. She came because she wanted to save her people from a trap they do not understand. I will not betray someone who trusted me. If you want her, you will have to go through me first." The veiled commander went silent. Then something unexpected happened. A new message came through the communication system, this time from a veiled commander on a different warship. The voice was younger and stronger. "I have heard the broadcast," the commander said. "The princess speaks truth. The military leaders have been deceiving us. I am ordering my ship to join this defense." Then another veiled commander spoke, and another. Within minutes, the veiled military was split in half. Half the ships supported the old government and demanded that the princess be returned. Half the ships had heard N's message and believed her. The civil conflict that had been brewing inside the veiled collective for years suddenly erupted into open confrontation. The Dominion, realizing that their plan had been exposed and that the veiled were no longer a unified target for conquest, began retreating. Their warships moved away from the station. They would not fight directly, not yet, not while other species were watching, but knew that they would not simply accept their plan being ruined. They would regroup. They would plan new strategies. The real conflict was not ending. It was just beginning. N moved to stand beside on the bridge. She looked out at the veiled warships that were now fighting each other, and her voice was quiet. "My people are breaking apart," she said. "This is what happens when you force them to choose. But this is necessary. We cannot heal while we are pretending everything is fine. We must break before we can rebuild." Put his hand on the control panel. He could feel the vibration of the around him, the great ship responding to the chaos of the battle outside. "We started a war," he said. "No," N replied. "The war was always there. You just gave people a reason to choose a side." War came faster than anyone expected. The Dominion attacked the Verdant Nebula with a massive fleet, 300 warships moving in perfect formation. They were confident. They had defeated every enemy they had ever faced. Their technology was superior to all others. They believed that the chaos among the veiled would make them easy targets. But they did not understand humans. They had dismissed the human species as primitive beings with weak weapons and weaker minds. Understood this mistake, and he used it against them. There was not a military vessel. It was designed for research and diplomacy. It had defense systems, but nothing that compared to the weapons on a warship. Under normal circumstances, they would have been destroyed in the first moments of combat, but did not follow normal military doctrine. Instead of defending the station, attacked. He ordered the to accelerate directly at the command vessel. The move was insane by every military standard. Every training manual said to maintain distance and use long-range weapons, but had studied military tactics for the past 2 weeks. He understood their weakness. They relied on overwhelming force and advanced technology. They assumed that smaller ships would be afraid and would run. N stood beside on the bridge as alarms screamed throughout the ship. She provided information about weapons systems and defensive patterns. Her knowledge of her own galactic region combined with understanding of military strategy created something unexpected. It created adaptation. "The ships are slower than ours in short turns," N said, reading the tactical displays. "They are built for power in straight lines. They cannot move quickly to the side." Use this information. As the race toward the command vessel, he ordered constant changes in direction. The ship could not track them properly. The laser fire that should have destroyed the human vessel missed repeatedly. When it did hit, the shields held longer than they expected. The human crew fought with desperation and intelligence. They pushed their ship beyond its design limits. The engines screamed in protest, but they kept moving. The gunners on the targeted weak points in the armor, places where the designers had not expected to be attacked. Humans learned from small victories. They improved constantly. They did not accept that they could not win. Around the veiled fighters that supported N's cause were fighting their own brothers and sisters. The veiled military was split between those who wanted to continue the alliance with thee and those who had heard the truth and rejected it. N's supporters were fewer in number, but they fought with a kind of passion that the older soldiers had forgotten. They were not fighting for orders from above. They were fighting for their own freedom. On the weapons platform of a human named worked with a veiled fighter named. Was young, only 19 years old, but he understood the weapon systems better than anyone on the ship. Was ancient by human standards, almost 200 years old, but he had memories of a time before the military took control of the veiled collective. They worked together, their different minds creating strategies that neither could have created alone. The command ship is turning, observed through the communication system. Their engines cannot rotate fast enough. We can hit their rear shields if we attack from the left side. Adjusted the weapon's trajectory. He aimed for the exact spot that it described. When fired, the energy weapon penetrated the armor and struck something important inside the ship. The command vessel slowed down. Its weapon's fire became less accurate. This was the moment had been waiting for. He ordered to ram the ship. The impact was violent and terrible. The bridge of the shook so hard that fell to the ground. Alarms screamed everywhere. Lights flickered and went dark. But the command ship had been damaged badly. Its main weapons were offline. Its ability to command the rest of the fleet was compromised. The effect on the fleet was immediate. Without their commander coordinating their movements, the ships became unorganized. They were individually powerful, but they were not smart enough to act alone. They had been taught to follow orders, not to think for themselves. The human ships and the veiled fighters coordinated attacks that they could not defend against. A human destroyer used unconventional tactics that they had never seen before. A veiled heavy cruiser moved to cut off escape routes. Slowly, the fleet began to fall back. They were losing ships. They were losing the battle. But victory came with a price. There was severely damaged. Fires burned in the lower decks. The engines were failing. The ship was not going to be able to fly much longer. Was on his way to the medical bay when the next attack came. A fighter had broken through their defenses. It moved fast and close, firing at this hull. Heard the explosion before he felt it. The shockwave knocked him down. His body hit the metal wall hard and pain exploded through his chest and arm. N was with him. The alien princess moved with surprising speed for a creature of her size. She used her 4 arms to catch as he fell. She sheltered him with her body as another burst of weapons fire came through the hallway. The energy weapons scored burns across her protective shell, but they did not penetrate deeply enough to reach the soft tissue underneath. "Go," said, trying to push her away. "Save yourself. Get to the escape pods." "No," N said simply. "You protected me. Now I protect you. This is what alliance means." Medical teams found them in the hallway a few minutes later. They carried to the medical bay, where doctors worked on his injuries through the night. He had 3 broken ribs, internal bleeding, and a serious burn on his left side. Under normal circumstances, he would not have survived. But he was human. Humans were stubborn. Humans fought for life even when it seemed impossible. And he had something to live for now. A galaxy that was changing, a war that could be won, and an alien princess who had chosen to stand beside him. The attack ended when the remaining ships finally accepted that they could not win. They retreated into deep space. The cost of the advance had been high, and their mission had failed. The Verdant Nebula was now a region of conflict and change, and they would have to plan a new strategy if they wanted to continue their expansion. As drifted into unconsciousness in the medical bay, his hand found N's. The alien princess sat beside him, keeping watch, waiting for him to wake up. The alliance between humans and Veiled had been forged in combat. It had been tested and it had held. The galaxy would never be the same again. Woke up in the medical bay 5 days after the battle. His body ached, but he was alive. The pain was real and strong, but it was the pain of healing, not the pain of dying. A human nurse named Sarah checked his vital signs and smiled at him. She had been there when they brought him in, and she had worked every shift since to make sure he survived. "Welcome back," Sarah said. "You have been asleep for a long time. The war is not over, but the battle is. We won." Tried to sit up, but his broken ribs screamed at him. He lay back down and waited for the pain to pass. "The Veiled?" he asked. "Their civil conflict is still happening, but it is different now," Sarah explained. "The old government is losing power. More and more Veiled soldiers are refusing to fight for them. N has been revealed to her people, and they are listening to her now. She is not just a runaway princess anymore. She is a leader." Before could ask more questions, N herself came through the medical bay door. The alien princess had been injured in the battle as well. Burn marks covered part of her shell, and she moved slightly slower than before. But her presence was stronger, more commanding. Something had changed in her. The princess had become someone else. "Captain," N said, "you are awake. I have been waiting for this moment." "What has happened?" asked. N explained that the Veiled Collective was breaking apart and reforming. The old families who had wanted to continue the alliance were being removed from power. The younger generation of Veiled, the ones who had heard N's broadcast and believed in change, were taking control. They were establishing a new government based on something that the Veiled had not experienced before: choice. The lower castes would have a voice. Soldiers would have rights. Leaders would have to answer for their decisions. "It will not be easy," N said. "My people have lived under strict hierarchy for 10,000 years. They do not know how to make decisions for themselves, but they are learning. And they are learning because you showed them that another way was possible." The news from the rest of the galaxy was equally dramatic. The broadcast that N had sent had reached billions of beings. Other species that had suffered under control began to speak out. Some formed alliances against some demanded reparations for the damage that had been done. The Dominion found itself facing resistance everywhere. For the first time in 200 years, they were not winning. But the most important change was in how other species saw humanity. Before N's broadcast, humans had been dismissed as weak and primitive. Now they were recognized as something more valuable, a species that could unite others through justice instead of force. The human government was flooded with requests for treaties and alliances. Species that had never wanted to talk to humans were suddenly eager to work together. 2 weeks after the battle, was released from the medical bay. He could walk, though movement was painful. The doctors told him that he would heal completely in time, but he would always feel the scars of this war inside his body. N took him to the formal treaty signing. The ceremony took place on station, in the same diplomatic chamber where N had first appeared to him. Now the chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species. Some had come to sign treaties of alliance. Some had come to witness the new order that was being established. The document that N signed together was simple and clear. It stated that humans and Veiled would work together as equals. Neither species would have authority over the other. Decisions would be made together. Technology and knowledge would be shared. The alliance was not about power or dominance. It was about mutual respect and mutual growth. When they signed the document, the assembly applauded. Some clapped with hands. Some made sounds that their species used to show approval. The Veiled representative clicked in a complex pattern that the translation system converted into words of honor and gratitude. After the ceremony, walked with N to the observation window. They looked out at the space around station. New ships were arriving every hour. Some were human. Some were Veiled. Some belonged to species that had never been to this region of space before. The Verdant Nebula was becoming a place where different species could gather and work together. "What comes next?" asked. N was silent for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was quiet. "My people are building a new society. We have much to learn and much to teach. The old ways are dying, but new ways are being born. It will take generations for this to become normal for us, but we are committed to trying." Nodded. He understood what she was saying. This was not the end of a story. This was the beginning of something much larger. The hardest part was not winning the battle. The hardest part was building something that would last. "The humans want you to come to Earth," said. "The government has asked if you would be willing to visit, to show the people what cooperation between species looks like." N made a sound that might have been laughter. "I would like that," she said. "I have studied your planet in the files. I would like to see it with my own senses." In the months and years that followed, the partnership between N became a symbol of what was possible. When humans and Veiled fought together, they were stronger than either species alone. Humans brought adaptability and moral courage. The Veiled brought strength and ancient wisdom. Together, they created something unprecedented. The Dominion did not disappear, but their expansion ended. Other species no longer lived in fear of conquest. The galaxy was becoming more balanced. Power was more evenly distributed. And at the center of this change stood a human captain and an alien princess who had chosen to believe that peace was possible even when war seemed inevitable. Stood on the bridge of watching the ships come and go from station. The ship had been repaired and improved, becoming a symbol of human-veiled cooperation. Its hull bore the marks of battle, but it was stronger now. It had survived. It had changed the galaxy. N came and stood beside him, as she had so many times now. Her shell had healed, and her mind had grown with each passing day. She had brought her people from the edge of slavery to the beginning of freedom. "Do you ever regret it?" asked. "Do you ever wish you had bonded with the commander instead, kept your comfortable life?" N moved her head in a way that meant no in her culture. "Every choice has a cost," she said. "But comfort is not worth the cost of freedom. And freedom is worth any price, Captain. You taught me that. That is why I will always be grateful to you." Smiled, the galaxy was still dangerous. There would be new conflicts and new challenges. But for the first time in a long time, there was hope. And hope, he had learned, was the most powerful weapon of all.